20th century Hungarian architecture was born in the 19th century, and it goes on pretty much into the 21st century as well. It takes pride in several eras and schools, which in their own age were not only in synchronicity with the highest achievements of European architecture, but sometimes even preceded them. Our review primarily presents remarkable achievements of three outstanding styles: Art Nouveau, Modernism and Organic architecture, by showing examples. The appearance of all the three schools in Hungary is characterized by innovations in using materials like the innovative use of pyrogranite, wood and ferroconcrete. Therefore, at the end of our review, we present the newest Hungarian technological invention in architecture, light-transmitting concrete. The works of Hungarian Art Nouveau architecture significantly differ according to following patterns from German, French or Belgian territories. However, there were specific Hungarian solutions as well. The Museum of Applied Arts is not only the emblematic building of Hungarian Art Nouveau, but also the first deviation from the antique Greek museum form rooted in literature. The facade and the roof of the building are covered with colourful glazed ceramics, dominated by the colours of green, yellow and red. With the easily formable Zsolnai ceramics and pyrogranite, surfaces similar to the function of dressed stone came into being, which at the same time are more delicate, highly coloured and weather resistant. The dome of the museum imitates the Indian stupa. This latter particularly means folk embroidery and Transylvanian wood carving. In this building, Erdőn Lechner and Gyula Partos wanted to mix the Far Eastern, especially Indian and Moorish architectural forms with Hungarian folk motifs. They took over this ornamental practice from the English patterns, namely from the works of John Ruskin and William Morris. The entrance hall under the dome tower has one of the most peculiar portals of the world's architectural culture, owing to its decorations. The inner space is roofed with a huge iron-framed glass roof and surrounded by a two-storey circular gallery modelled on the Paris and other World Exhibition pavilions. Erdőn Lechner used the technical potentials of the steel construction to introduce a special national form of expression. The architectural conception is the physical realization of the Hungarian-Persian-Indian kinship theory. The Pest Postal Savings Bank is a worthy pair of its contemporary, Otto Wagner's Vienna Postal Savings Bank, which was built later. The two decisive buildings of Central Europe give contrasting answers to the most burning questions of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy at the turn of the century. The building in Budapest is considered the archetype of organic architecture, while the other is considered the archetype of functionalism. On the work of Erdőn Lechner, the glazed ceramics of the Zsolnai factory, the pyrogranite glories in triumph again. The entrance hall of the Royal Geological Institute of Hungary is an excellent example of Erdőn Lechner's endeavours for total art. The space structure of the staircase corresponds to the three-dimensional folk art motifs. Erdőn Lechner created a distinctive three-dimensional space from the tiny lacy motifs. The lacy ornament of the facades opens the outer walls of the building towards the sky. Moving upwards, the forms are getting more and more complicated and ornamental. The facade is dominated by untreated brick stripes, which holds together with the windows. There are Venetian windows on the second floor. The towers of the main front, the slim chimneys, the glazy sky blue roof tiles together create the special atmosphere of the house. The roof is crowned with a huge globe. The Schmidl sepulchral vault, which is a common work of Bela Leiter and Erden Lechner, can be found in the Budapest Jewish Cemetery. Lots of people think that it is the culmination of Hungarian Art Nouveau. The starting point of the composition, the two vases by the door, are still eclectic elements, but Mikshorot's glass windows and marble mosaics are the trademarks of Art Nouveau. The outer ceramics and the interior ornamentations symbolise rebirth. The six-petal flower on the peak is the symbol of fertility, but at the same time it is based on the geometrical construction of the Star of David. The principle is repeated in the formation of the skylights. The basic colours are marine blue, gold and turquoise. The Turek banking house in Servita Square was built with a modern glass curtain wall ahead of its age. It is decorated with a vast glass mosaic of Mikshorot. Its main figure is the Blessed Virgin Mary, patroness of Hungary. The facade of the banking house is a symbol of its age, but at the same time it is an early modernist national conception because the unusually narrow building makes an almost modernist impression. On the ground floor of Rózsa Völgyi Business House, which is situated in the same block, there is a still operating pharmacy with a reconstructed Art Nouveau interior design. Its external and internal richness in detail is captivating. The municipality of Sobotka laid a direct charge on Marcel Komor and Dezső Jakob, who were the followers of Erden Lechner, to implement their plan for a characteristically Hungarian Art Nouveau synagogue in their city. The conservative taste and the religious motifs fell into the background here. Motifs of Hungarian folk art dominate on the building. The lead glass windows resemble the world of Fourier's patterns. Rational and rigorous composition and economical structure mingle with the unity of ornamentation and richness of decorative motifs. The dome reminds us of the solution in the Museum of Applied Arts. István Megyeszai's church in Városmújhely shows a relationship with Erden Lechner and Megyeszai's master Otto Wagner as well. He believed the structural logic of folk architecture, which he considered a model, cannot be divided from the overall system of decoration, as the latter is the inheritor of the function of ancient architectural tradition. Megyeszai became aware that ferroconcrete was the building material of the future and built the first Hungarian church with ferroconcrete structure in Városmújhely. The prefabricated elements, which were first used here, just like the multiplied concrete angels, served the conscious reformation of folk architecture. By designing the Fásori Calvinist church, Aladár Arkai, follower of Erden Lechner, confronted the theory of folk architecture. He stated that it was the national variation of the current architectural style of civilized nations. However, he kept the heritage of Lechner concerning the economy and the use of materials and the priority of functionalism. One can discover the influence of Otto Wagner in this church, but it also connects the aspirations of Finnish national romanticism. It is a typical example of renovated central space Protestant churches. Concerning the stylistic marks, it is a characteristic feedback of the neo-Romanesque architecture, which was developed in Chicago under European inspiration. Left from the portal, held by 4 columns, there is a Gothic-like quadratic bell tower with an angular facade. On the right, there is a cylinder-shaped domed tower. The massive triangle pediment between them reminds us of peasant traditions. Besides the universal organic motifs, the typically Hungarian folk decoration can also be found on the building. The church can be considered the synthesis of the contemporary architectural inspirations at the turn of the century. The church in Szebegyén, which was the result of the cooperation between Béla Janszky and the Transylvanian Károly Kós, is the ideal church for young rural sociologists. This stone church with a pointed tower recalls the medieval times by connecting Romanesque style and Transylvanian traditions. The three-aisled block is disrupted by the big tower and the conical small tower. The slanted ceiling of the nave is decorated by paintings of Oladár Körösfői Krais, which are related to Finnish national romanticism. The medieval colour composition is balanced with modern design. According to Károly Kós's ideology, Hungarian folk art is based on medieval art. The stripe of the Venetian windows creates the special light effects of the church. The inner space is dominated by huge beams, coloured by lead glass windows. According to the history of architecture, the church in Szebegyén is the pair of the asymmetric early modernist cathedral in Tampere. The Rök Palace in Szeged is a rare appearance of French and Belgian Art Nouveau's effect in Hungary. There is a café on its ground floor. Its facade is statuesque. The wrought iron stair rails imitate plant claspers and flower cups. On the whole, it is a match for any high-standard European Art Nouveau building. The Gellert Hotel, decorated with Oriental elements, was built during the First World War, but got its final Art Nouveau form only in 1927. Neo-Baroque and Classicist elements are blended in it. The facade of the bath, opening towards the hill, is crowned by a triple dome. It recalls Turkish baths and also the Hungarian architectural tradition assumed by Erden Lechner, which is related to Indian and Persian architecture. The glass windows of the lobby were made in Mikko Roth's workshop. Mosaic floors and tiles show strong Oriental effects. The application of form and function makes the Hotel Gellert and the bath a building that closes the era of Art Nouveau and anticipates modernist architectural experiments. The new modern Hungarian architecture started with residential construction. Private initiatives went ahead of academic approaches for the first time. In this respect, the situation was just the opposite in Germany, where state orders helped the spreading of modern architecture. The Association of Hungarian Engineers and Architects initiated the new architectural system in the experimental housing estate in Napraforgó Street. The German connection is obvious, because Weissenhofsiedlung consisted of 21 houses, while the housing estates in Napraforgó Street consisted of 22. However, the realisation was quite different from the German example. In regard to the experiment, the 22 architects managed to get a permission to reduce the area of the building plots in order to prove that it was possible to build a villa on a relatively small area. After their construction, the villas operated as exhibition houses. The housing estate was just an example of building up-to-date, middle-class homes, but it gives a comprehensive picture of modern architectural styles of the age. The Dalnoki Kovács villa was designed by Farkas Molnár for the director of the National Industrial Corporation in a modern spirit. It was the first really mature work. The ground plan of the ferro-concrete skeleton house is composed of 4 square-shaped fields, but the mass of the customary cubical house is disrupted. The facade is animated by the diagonal composition. The prismatic block is connected by a cylindrical staircase. The L-shaped living room on the ground floor is expanded with a semicircular winter garden. On the first floor, a big terrace is linked with the upstairs rooms above the living room, from where a spiral staircase goes to the deck-like roof terrace. The house won first prize at the Milan Triennial in 1933 and later was declared a public monument. Lajos Kozma's holiday home on Lupa Island was built on ferro-concrete pillars in order to be protected against floods. The house serves as an example for the fact that its architect could design excellently even on a small scale. The holiday home is made up of a more spacious multifunctional room, a bathroom and a kitchenette. Originally, the terrace reached far above the water. Aesthetic considerations played a decisive role in the modern period of Lajos Kozma's architecture. Therefore, his houses are relaxed and diversified. The interiors are worked out in great detail with handicraft methods. The 7-storey atrium apartment house has particular significance owing to the common application of iron skeleton and ferro-concrete. Its facade is composed of connecting ribbon windows. Most of the flats in the house were bachelors' apartments. The atrium cinema operated on the ground floor. The iron columns in the entrance hall were covered partly with mirrors and partly with 3-coloured glass mosaics. The floor had a modernist effect with a cheeseboard pattern. The colours of the entrance hall and the auditorium originally were black and white and orange-red. The block of flats at the corner of Parigi Street and Pétöfi Street is one of the most elegant buildings of the era between the 2 world wars in Budapest. The corner of the house is elegantly chamfered. The 2 storeys and the loft make the building tower-like. The wide windows on the curved corner wall become logins on the 2 street fronts. On the ground floor, a high-quality shopping passage was built, which is similar to the modernist passages of Wenceslas Square in Prague. Its spacious columned areas are made bright by flatly arched domes frequently disrupted with glassed holes. The design of the staircase, with its high standard wall coverings and skylights, fits to the elegance of the building. The apartment house of Weiss Manfred Works in Margit Boulevard is called the Piston House by the architects. In the architecture of one of the designers, Ferenc Domány, the characteristics of modernism are combined with meticulous working out of detail, which is the influence of the experiences of Western European architecture. The Piston House is actually 2 parallel 6-storey buildings, which are connected by an elliptic staircase. The streamlined waving balconies and stone coverings give the composition an expressive effect. Contradicting to the Budapest block of flats image, it is rather related to Gaudi's wavy houses in Barcelona or Erich Mendelssohn's tower in Potsdam. The rational ground plan becomes possible by the sawtooth shifting of the rectangular system. Its rigidity is resolved by the free line of balconies following the line of the street. The main entrance is the boulevard, and a high-quality marble entrance hall leads to the staircase. In the 2 focuses of the elliptic staircase, 2 rust-proof metal elevators operate in 2 glass cylinders. This is probably the most elegant reception area of the age. The Bauhaus follower, Farkas Molnar, designed the stripe of the Orti apartment houses in Köztársaság Square, together with the 8 other architects. This is the first block in Budapest which was not built with gardens. These houses, with the balconies, the long horizontal windows, relaxed facades and rational ground plans, were the triumph of functionalism in their age. For the sake of good orientation, the prismatic houses are at right angle to the square, and they are connected by shops on the ground floor. Finally, the 4 ferro-concrete skeleton, flat-roofed houses were built with small apartments. The building of the National Indoor Swimming Pool on Margate Island is composed of prismatic and semi-cylindrical units. It shows the inquisitive ways and means of masters who were educated in eclecticism and used the texture of brick as decoration. Alfred Hayosh designed 2 indoor pools under the elliptic ferro-concrete beams on the first floor because of the danger of flood. The stand, which can seat almost 3,000 people, was a real record in those days. Interior design is also Puritan, with a modern spirit in characteristic colonnade. There are 2 semi-cylindrical staircases on the 2 sides of the main front, which lead to the stands. The whole building has a ferro-concrete skeleton. The clinkers are also put in concrete. The windows are linked by a stripe of white artificial stone parapets. The swimming pool was an innovation with its form and structure as well. The church in Városmajor is a symmetrically placed group of prisms of different heights, where the elements are linked by lying prisms. The first modernist church of the Hungarian capital shows the effect of North Italian rationalism, the French Pere and the Swiss Moser. This was the first modern Hungarian public building, so the church was more progressive than secular decision-makers. It was a brave attempt to innovate sacred architecture. The bell tower was built 4 years after the dedication. Thanks to the parallel and terraced forms, the church offers modern views from each standpoint. The portals of the main front are surrounded by 2 towers. The interior is a monolith ferro-concrete constructivist space. It is actually a hall church decorated by colourful cubist expressionist glass windows, determining a new direction to Hungarian religious art. The 2 narrowing aisles on the 2 sides of the building serve as chapels. The sanctum is also rectangular. The inner and outer monolith walls and the ferro-concrete skeleton originally were visible concrete, which was quite shocking at the time. The Italian atmosphere Franciscan church and monastery in Pászary was strongly criticised at the beginning of the 30s. The simple cube of the rectangle planned building is connected to the monastery with an enclosed court on the one side and the campanile-like separated bell tower on the other. The monastery, with its horizontal ribbon windows, makes the impression of a modern residential house instead of a classical cloister. The interior is characterised by the flat ceiling, supported by concrete arches, and the corridor-like narrow aisle. The exterior is made playful by the windows, the entrance hall and the portal. The Pauline Monastery and Church in Pécs is a representative example of the modern spirited religious architecture of the age. During the planning, Károly Weichinger's lyrical style resolved the closed cubes of geometric masses with the help of the nice arrangement and big semicircle windows. The gable-roofed church, which reminds us of the Italian countryside, is connected to the graceful campanile with an archway. The impressive architectural line of arcades is repeated on the upper part of the campanile. The inner space of the ferro-concrete skeleton building is divided into 3 aisles by slim columns. The natural stone covering makes the composition accommodate to the natural environment. Nándor Körmendi was one of the most popular church architects between the two world wars. In this field, he was a modern innovator. He managed to alloy Italian medieval forms and solemnity with the style of the modern age. His works show noble simplicity, which is based on the clear structure. The extension of the mosque built by Gazi Kasum Pasha in Pécs was a big professional challenge for him in 1938. The quadratic ground-planned dome monument was extended with a semicircle nave. The interior harmonises with the sometime Muslim mosque, which was dedicated as a Christian church. The parish church in Balaton Boglar was a classic example of modern village churches, which fit in with the natural environment. It was built in the spirit of new aspirations. This nobly simple building is an outstanding piece of Ivan Kocsis' life work. Although he doesn't belong to the circle of clearly modernist architects, with this building he found that proper proportion which still has an influence on us. He applied the fine proportions of medieval Hungarian village churches in modern architecture, and he extended the building with an asymmetric prismatic bell tower, which stands on ferro-concrete pillars and is roofed with a red copper steeple. The pillars of the ferro-concrete skeleton distribute the side fronts with Gothic patterns. The interior is simple, rustic and moderate. The rough cast resolves the rigidity of white walls. The technique of rough casting is even more spectacular on the presbytery, which can also be ranked with the notable achievements of modern Hungarian architecture. The organic movement is one of the best-known schools of contemporary Hungarian architecture. This powerful and widespread movement was started by Imre Makovec and György Csete at the end of the 60s. The forms of organic architecture, especially floral patterns, recall the world of Erdőn Lechner. Just like Lechner, the organic architects attempted to create a non-existing tradition. Beyond this similarity, organic architecture in many respects is related to the school of Károly Kós. Besides the forms, there is special emphasis on materials. Materials loved by techno-architects are rejected by the biomorphic architects. They use wood, possibly in its original form, and incidentally brick. Wood as a building material materialises the organic conception. But this wood is not the traditional building timber, smooth, trimmed, right-angled, but a kind of ancient tree that unites the earthly with the cosmos. The ground plan and space of Makovec's church in Pécs is based on the symbols of folk art. It refers to the ancient world concept, the dynamic balance of dark and light, which can be found in Christianity as well. The symbols of the church, the golden and silver angels, the sun and the moon, also express the architect's aspiration to dress the place of divine worship in a vision for the future built on traditions. The building is characterised by arched forms, greyish-blue roofing and spoil on the walls. Mother Earth meets the roof, excluding the main element of Christian history of architecture. The wall. The heart-shaped ground-planned interior opens towards the sky in the middle. The rough Saint pillars lead our eyes to this aperture. The statue of Jesus Christ is placed high above the congregation. Besides Imre Makovec, György Csete is the most significant Hungarian organic architect. He was a founder of the Pécs Group. The ancient history of the Hungarian comes to life in his works. For György Csete, organic construction means an architecture, which is rooted in national traditions and culture. He set himself the aim of creating the mother tongue of architecture by using folk art, peasant architecture, and the motives of Hungarian ancient history. Following the examples of Béla Bartók, Ödön Lechner, and Károly Kós, in the operation of the Pécs group, natural forms, archaeological finds and the elements of folk culture played decisive roles, usually as analogies, but they often were transformed into contours of buildings and ground plan patterns. For them, shelter is the key word, which means curved and circularly symmetric structures. The first and probably most powerful messenger of György Cseté's organic conception is the spring house in Orfű, which he built together with Jenő Dulánszky. It grows out of the soil of the hillside like a giant flower. Actually, it is a pump house, which sucks the cavern water from the cave underneath. Its cup-like bottom part is made of monolith ferroconcrete and hides the machinery, while in its wooden-panelled upper part resembling a tulip or poppy head, there is a restroom for the staff. This room gets light through a single crystal-shaped skylight. The spring house rather seems to be a sanctuary of sun cult than a technical building. György Csété and Jenő Dulánszky directly started the natural forms when designing the virtuosic shell structure of Reconciliation Chapel in Beremend. They enlarged forms of leaves, crops and petals to building contour and ground plan. The Yugoslav War inspired the building of this church. It is an ecumenical church of different peoples living in the same territory and speaking different languages, and the symbol of solidarity. It is a memento of the victims and devastations, but at the same time it symbolises rebirth. The bud-shaped building has an unbelievably thin ferroconcrete shell structure. The church, with its organic form and structure, resembles the church of the Yurt village in Ópusztaszer, but uses the raw materials of the local cement works and stone quarry. Imre Makovec interprets the concept of organic architecture in another way. Although he was influenced by Wright, Gough, Herb Green and Alvar Aalto's attraction to the spoil and their use of natural materials, his works are not organic in the original sense of the word. His works are rather canonical, and their solid ideological base is in Rudolf Steiner's Anthroposophy. As the international character of the architecture is important for him, his interest has never been limited to Hungarian sources. He examines the Celtic, Far Eastern, Scythian and Transylvanian motives and symbols as parts of the same collective subconscious. Imre Makovec thus came to the conclusion that he creates the building as a being, using the anatomy of human beings and other creatures or the virtual forms and surfaces deriving from human motion. For him, construction is a mythical action and drama. In other words, it is a defensive magic against impersonal powers. In the church of Imre Makovec, round forms reached high complexity. The figures of the roof grow out from Mother Earth. Later, ancient world and Western architecture often run parallel in Makovec's architecture. In the Seville Expo Pavilion, we find his primitive forms together with the relics of Christian Hungarian architecture. In the parish church of Százhalombatta, the two codes also run parallel. Organic form dresses tectonic structure. In the village of Bok, one of the smallest community houses built by Imre Makovec shows what Makovec means by the drama of construction. He built the community house right behind the demolished war memorial. He placed his building in the axis of the memorial in a way that its two bordered wings recall the image of the enormous mythical eagle of the ancient Hungarians. Thus, while the theatre, the cafe, and the club rooms serve the recreation of the community, the building has a secret message. It gives back its symbol to the village. The mortuary in Farkasrét Cemetery is probably the most shocking work of Imre Makovecz. He formed the dark interior of the existing building like the thorax of a human being. Wavy wooden ribs leave the side walls, then unite in a spine-shaped form in the middle of the room in the longitudinal axis. There are anthropoid chairs by the walls, and a carved wooden gravepost stands behind the catafalque, harmonising with the world of the interior. The big auditorium of the Catholic University in Piliscaba, the Stefaneum, forms an enormous saint crown. It is a postmodern metaphor containing earlier Makovecz quotations. The university was gradually developed by the reconstruction of a military complex. The first two reconstructed educational buildings got towers, which are symbolic replicas of Hungarian church towers. The two-domed main building with the big auditorium and some smaller rooms were built on the opposite side of the territory. The auditorium is inspired by Gothic art, but the supporting structure of the dome is made of wood. The stage was inspired by Roman architecture. It is tilted from the vertical position and thus connects to the auditorium. The tilted dome provides good acoustics. Dezső Ekler was a devotee of the rationalist architecture. He joined Imre Makovecz during his master school years. His buildings in the territory of Nagykálló-Harangod-Kamp, especially the dance barn, and the wooden canteen and bathhouse give evidence of his fast acquisition and original interpretation of the master's architectural language. The camp hosts activities of different folk traditions. It consists of the dance barn, the canteen, the bathhouse, the sauna, the lookout tower, the reception building, smaller shelters at the edge of the forest, a textile workshop and a blacksmith shop. While the dance barn at the clearing resembles a two-winged helmet, the reception building looks like the shield of insects. The double spiral stairs of the lookout tower is attached to a totemic element at the end of an ascending path. Dezső Ekler's Disznókör winery in Mezőzombor mingles the organic forms with regionalism and the adaptation to the architectural language of the environment. In the interior, we find traditional cellar entrances, pannier motifs, and other postmodern quotations. The machines are stored in the tractor garage, which contains the employees' changing rooms, the offices, and the canteen as well. The building, which looks like an artificial hill, hides a crater-like yard. The winery organically fits in with the environment, with its building materials, stone, pine wood, and slate. Erwin Nagy is a devoted follower of his master, Imre Makovecz. He shows his unique style in the Swan House at the castle hillside. The building has cave-like forms and Gothic-like pilasters. It is the head building of the row of houses in Hottyút Street. The roof is drawn behind the level of the facade. The independent cornice joins to that of the neighbouring house. The two corners of the house are heightened. One is cut-edged with a domed roof, the other becomes a bastion in its upper part and is closed with a gable. The building animates its not too attractive architectural environment by rejecting its tradition. The contradiction between the organic shell and the prosaic environment is evident at first sight. The sports hall and restaurant in Csenger was designed by Laszlo Vince, whose architecture is based on the organic conception. His individual architecture has fantastic elements after the model of Antonio Santaolalla and Paolo Soleri, Csengér is a small town on the eastern frontier of Hungary. Its extensive reconstruction started at the end of the 80s. The core of the town developing plan is the educational complex in the centre of the city. It consists of a school, a sports hall, a restaurant and a dormitory. The sports hall emerges from the group of buildings. The facade is decorated by organic elements. The sports hall, with its raindrop-shaped ground plan, is part of the educational complex, which performs catering services for the pupils and employees of the ambient institutions. Light-transmitting concrete, or litrocon, was invented by a young Hungarian architect, Áron Losonczy. The invention found responses worldwide, and Time magazine declared it one of the most significant inventions of the year in 2004. The Hungarian professional created a building material which can fundamentally reform architecture. The basic idea of light-transmitting concrete is very simple. Thousands of optical glass fibres run parallel to each other and lead light by points between the two main surfaces of each block. The first application of light-transmitting concrete occupies an intermediate position between a statue and a building element, referring to the aesthetic power of the invention. The block placed by the window provides varying sights depending on the inner and outer light and creates a pleasant coziness in the living space. This revolutionary innovation first appeared in Hungary in László Földes's family house in Szilasliget, in front of the fortress in Komorom, and in the auditorium and reception tables of the Corvinus University in Budapest, which was designed by Attila Borsai and Gábor Szokolyai. Light-transmitted concrete illustrates that Hungarian architecture, which genuinely applies pyrogranite, wood and ferroconcrete, has unlimited reserves in the field of material usage.